This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. You're in the right place. And today, we're going to talk about bodybuilding because this was my introduction to really discipline and healthy habits was the study of bodybuilding. I got into it in high school. I was so obsessed with trying to get bigger, I was so skinny, and I've said it before on other episodes. I was, made fun of. I couldn't play the sports that I wanted to play because of my size. Before graduating, I was 6'2", 135 pounds. And so in high school, I started at the encouragement of a couple of coaches in school. Rome wasn't built in a day. Come down here, use the weights. And so I started reading bodybuilding magazines. This is in the late 70s, right? 74, 75, I start reading these muscle and fitness, strength and health, Iron Man. I think there was something called Power Lifter, about powerlifting. I was just obsessed with how can I get bigger? How can I gain muscle? How can I gain size? So I had a subscription to every bodybuilding magazine there was. Strength and health, definitely muscle and fitness, and several of them. And I would read them cover to cover all the time. And every time I got that new magazine, I just went over it. Sometimes I'd read these articles 2 or 3 times. And of course, eventually these articles, they repeat themselves, get bigger arms, bigger legs, how to get calves to grow, gigantic shoulders. So I'm always reading these, articles on different kinds of exercise and different kinds of routines. And I'm reading this in the 70s. And of course, I'm reading about all these bodybuilders from that era of the late 60s, Reg Park. Of course, now Arnold's coming onto the scene. And Chet Yorton, Dave Draper, the blonde bomber, a big bodybuilder from the 60s and 70s. And Dave Draper was in several movies. And Beach Party Bingo or something? He was in there with Annette Funicello and what's his name? And so he did quite a few movie roles. But I'm reading about all these guys' routines. And back in those days, those bodybuilders were of the type that would, this was their routine. They would bulk up in the off season, and then like 12 weeks before a show, they would cut weight to get ripped up and get rid of all the fat and retain as much muscle as possible for their competitions. So the diets that I'm reading about really was not about health. It was about getting big in the off season and cutting weight when it came time for competition. But this was my goal, to get size. How big can I get? And some of these guys were just ingesting so many calories a day, and that's how I was able to gain 50 pounds in 1 year. Granted, not all muscle, maybe not that much of it muscle, but quite a bit. But I didn't care at the time. I was going for size, and so that's what I was doing. I was trying to use heavy weights, low reps, and to ingest as many calories as I could to rebuild the muscle that I was breaking down in the gym. So I became very obsessed with gaining size and muscle, which set me off on a course of discipline as far as working out. And to this day, and my wife is the same, we can't go more than 2 or 3 days, 4 days without working out, and we get a little antsy. We need to get back in the gym because we don't feel right unless we're in that gym getting a workout in, even if it's brief. But so that kind of set me off at age 17, 18. I'm trying to gain weight. Like I said, 6'2", 135. Can you imagine? And then 1 year after graduation, I went from 135, 185. I've talked about it before. I was drinking 6 quarts of milk a day. And sometimes I would have a dozen eggs in one day, not at all in one sitting. Or I would put 3-4 raw eggs in a blender along with peanut butter, ice cream, anything to get and I was using whole milk at the time, just trying to get size. I can imagine. And I would say probably a couple of things because I was young And probably exercise counteracted a lot of the ill health benefits that I was getting from eating such a lard and fat in my. I mean, I'm sure my arteries were clogging, but at that time I was still young, and I believe exercise, which seems to be the key in everything as far as staying healthy. That's like the one linchpin that we need to do, regardless of nutrition. If you can get exercise, regular exercise in, you can counteract the negativity that you're getting from maybe a bad diet. I was watching a YouTube video the other day by Peter Attia. He's a doctor that he's obsessed with longevity and centenarian. He wants to live to well over 100 and being active. And he quoted a statistic that said if you go from zero exercise to 3 hours a week, you reduce your morbidity, you reduce your likelihood of death by 50%. Just going from zero exercise just to 3 hours a week, which is not hard to do. I mean, if you're doing 20, 30 minutes a day, 3-4 days, well, you do the math. Getting 3 hours for the week is not that hard to do. And so I thought that was kind of amazing, but just proves to the point that exercise is the linchpin, the really important link in the chain as far as health and longevity. So I was inculcated with the habit of discipline young, since I was obsessed with trying to gain size and weight. I wouldn't miss a workout, and I did my best to keep ingesting a lot of calories. So I was over-nutritioned, as you might say, just eating too much. But this is the way I was putting on size. And so I was following bodybuilders, their routines, and I was watching bodybuilding competitions. I actually at one time went down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to see, I believe it was the Mr. Universe, maybe Mr. America. It was a major national IFBB bodybuilding contest. So I got to see many of the big stars that I've been reading about in the magazines, and now I'm seeing them in this big competition in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I think I mentioned before, during that trip, I also went to York, Pennsylvania to see where the York barbells were made. And that's how obsessed I was in all of this. But, it led me to a life today of discipline as far as getting into the gym and working out. But now I've switched I have flipped, as many years ago, to more still strength building, trying to retain as much muscle mass, but at the same time, cardiovascular health, because that's the big killer of all Americans, male and female today, is CVD, as they call it, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks. So I'm trying to maintain as much as I can, but I default to lean regardless of what I'm eating. But so I'm keeping track of the numbers, but we're talking about bodybuilding. And that's what really got me into studying exercise, different exercise, what the different movements were, how to work out in certain ways. And there is a way that you need to work out for the best benefits. When you're working out your chest, we'll say, you are flushing. You are doing two things. You're breaking down that muscle tissue right in your chest. You're doing bench presses, maybe some inclines, declines. So you're working, all areas of that chest, of that pectoral. You're working the upper, the outer, the lower by doing different angles of, let's say, benches, flies, cable pulley flies. And of course, in the decline would be the lower, that line in the bottom of your pectorals. But when you're doing muscle building exercise, you're flushing blood into that muscle. They used to call it racing the pump. So if you're trying to gain size, you're doing low reps, high weight with a lot of rest in between. If you're trying to pump a lot of blood into that muscle for bodybuilding, then we're doing higher reps and with a lighter weight with the object of flushing blood into that muscle. So we're getting all that blood and flushing it in. So that's why a lot of these Weider principles from Joe Weider, one of the chief editors of Muscle and Fitness, I believe it was, in the 70s, he came up with the Weider principles that were discovered by these bodybuilders. And so once you flush blood into that chest muscle, now you want to keep it there as long as possible. So you would not follow a chest routine with a leg workout. So you've flushed all this blood into your upper body, and so now you wouldn't go to legs and now try to flush all that blood into the big muscles of your thighs, because it would be detrimental to muscle repair and creating a larger muscle that you've now damaged through exercise. When you're doing these exercises, you're actually creating little tears in the muscle as it contracts to handle the weight, the payload that you're putting against it, the resistance. And what it does then is on the rest, when you grow, is during the rest times. That's when your body says, okay, now we're going to rebuild what was broken down, so the next time we can handle that weight again, which is why another Weider principle was progressive resistance, right? So we handled 20 pounds for 10 reps, and we've done that for a week or two. Now, hey, we need to go to 15 pounds. We need to go to 25 pounds. We need to gradually increase that and then get back up to those same reps, and then we gradually increase the weight again. We keep doing that, and that's how we get the muscle to get bigger. But I was learning all these principles, and so I would do what they call I still to this day do a split routine. So this is how I work. The whole body for me takes 3 days. So on Monday, let's say as an example, Monday I would do chest and back, which could be considered the push-pull method, where I'm doing pushing exercises for the chest and then pulling for the back, rowing, pull downs, maybe pullovers, push-pull. They call that routine. But I would do chest and back, so I'm flushing blood into the chest muscle and then the back muscle. So these muscles are not only are they in the upper body, they're closely related. And so that's a good combination to have. And then the Tuesday, then I would do shoulders and arms. And so shoulders first, presses, pushing, but it also pre-exhausts the triceps. When you're doing all those pushing movements for your shoulders, you're what they call pre-exhausting. We're also pumping the triceps are getting a workout already prior to us actually focusing on them strictly, separated from everything else. So that's a good way to go from shoulders right into triceps. And you want to do triceps before biceps, because if you do biceps first, right, your biceps become so flooded with blood, it's hard to extend your arm out, and you need to extend your arm completely to do proper triceps exercises like the triceps push down. And so then on the third day, whether it be Wednesday or, if I was trying, back in the day when I was trying to gain size and weight, I would just do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then take Saturday, Sunday off, and then start all over again. So just once a week, when I was trying to get big, I would do that routine. But now I'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Wednesday would be legs alone. So you're flushing all that blood to the lower part of your body, and that's all you're going to do because you want to keep it there. But then you can go, of course, and do cardio from there. So to this day, when I can, I'll do if I'm going to do 5 days a week, then I do, chest back Monday, shoulders, arms Tuesday, legs Wednesday, and then I'll start again, chest back, right, Thursday, shoulders and arms Friday, then take Saturday, Sunday off, and then I'll come back Monday for legs. So you just continue the cycle, but I may only do 5 days instead of I could do 6 and then do the whole body. But you see, if you just do the 2 muscle groups and you're doing maybe 3 exercises, 4 sets apiece. So you do an exercise, let's say bench, 4 sets, flat bench, 4 sets incline, 4 sets decline, 4, 8. So you're doing 12 sets. Then you go to your back. See, if you're not messing around and you're not engaged in conversation, you're not there to socialize, you're there to work out, you can get that chest back done maybe in 40 minutes and you're done. And then you can go to cardio. And so that works out great for me. You're not so exhausted that you can't do your cardio. So then I was pretty embedded in this bodybuilding knowledge by the time I was 24, 25. So when I went to Los Angeles, went to the LA Sheriff's Department, then I got into some more cardio because in the academy, everybody's into running. But I had a partner of mine who was a bodybuilder. He had competed in several competitions in the military. This guy was really built. But I was told by someone in the sheriff's department, you could go down to the world famous Gold's Gym in Venice, and they'll give you a membership because you're a member of the sheriff's department. Just show your ID. Who do I meet at the counter? I walk in to Gold's Gym in Venice, the famous Gold's Gym in Venice. And who is at the counter but Pete Grimkowski from Rochester, New York, who is now one of the major owners, or at that time he might have been the only owner of Gold's Gym in Venice. And he had won Mr. IFBB, Mr. World, and so many other competitions. The guy was massive, known for his size, like 5'10", 245 pounds, solid muscle. I had seen him so many times in the muscle magazines, read so many articles about him, knew he was from Rochester, had no idea I would walk into Gold's Gym, Venice, and meet Pete Grimkowski. And I said, hey, Pete, I'm a big fan. I'm a member of the LA Sheriff's Department, and I'm from Rochester, New York, or that area. And he said, what? Let's make out the paperwork. You got a membership on me. And so that was great that I would see him there all the time. So here, it was just weird for me that all these bodybuilders now that I had read about in all the magazines, they're in Gold's Gym in Venice. And I used to not only work out there, I would work out down the street in Santa Monica at the World Gym, which was, Arnold was mainly, I would see Arnold in World Gym. Although once in a while I would see him in Gold's Gym, but mostly Lou Ferrigno worked out in Gold's Gym. But Pete Grimkowski, I'm going to read a little bit about him. It was just, it was really thrilling to meet him, right? I'm coming from my small town of upstate New York near Rochester. Now I'm in Gold's Gym, and here's Pete Grimkowski that I'm meeting. He was one of the largest bodybuilders of his era, competing at over 240 pounds. He began his career by winning his hometown title of Mr. Rochester. I didn't know that. I had forgotten that. I probably did know it at the time. He won that in 1968. Wow. I had no idea. So I was born in 57. I was 11 years old when he won Mr. Rochester. So by the time I was going to some gyms in Rochester, then he was long gone. He then went on to win the 1970 AAU Mr. Eastern America, the 1971 AAU Junior Mr. USA, and the 1972 AAU Junior Mr. America. In 1977, Grimkowski started competing in the IFBB and took home the heavyweight titles at both the Mr. America and Mr. World. After returning from competition in 1979, Pete was one of a group of partners who bought and then transformed Gold's Gym into the worldwide empire that it is today. He sold the gym chain in 1999, but continues to be active in many areas of sport and business while devoting the majority of time to his family life. And I just saw Pete on a podcast, probably, it was a podcast that was put on YouTube over a year ago. So, but he's looking pretty good, but not like he was. It was amazing, which I guess is healthy, right? He looks like he's about 175, 180 right now is what he looks like to me, but he could be a little bit bigger. But compared to the 240 size, he looks really small, but I'm sure that's, and of course he admits to how many steroids that he took. And I had no idea about steroids. In high school, I never heard of steroids. I don't even remember reading about them in the magazines. But when I got out to California, because I guarantee if that was available in high school, I'm sure I would have been shooting steroids all day, every day. I definitely would have taken them. Now, for some reason, when I got out to California and was exposed to steroids and had the opportunity many, many times to, I had it available to me. At one time, it was, if you had a doctor who would give you a prescription, you could use steroids. Even on the department, it was allowed if you had a prescription. So in the jails, deputies were using steroids a lot in 1984, 85, 86, or right around there. And but I never, something told me, I guess the good angel on my shoulder told me, don't do it. Don't do it. And it was hard, ego-wise, because I ended up meeting another buddy of mine in the jail who was an active competitor in bodybuilding competitions. He won, he took third in Mr. LA several times, and he won Best Abs several times. And he and I became workout partners. And so we would work out, and we ended up working out in the World Gym in Northridge. And so we were steady workout partners. So you can imagine he's a competitor in bodybuilding competitions, Mr. LA, not a small competition, and he is taking steroids. He's about, so after I graduated from the academy, so I was about 190 after graduating, and that's about what I maintained, about 190. So I was still pretty lean at 6'2", but I was pretty big compared to what I was in high school. Obviously, I'm 60 pounds heavier, and a lot a lot slimmer and more muscular than I was when I went from 135 to 185. But so I won't say his last name, but Tim and I, we worked out together religiously, and Tim had a great knowledge of bodybuilding. Obviously, he's competing, and he did very well. And he was taking steroids on a regular basis. So obviously, I had access, if I wanted, to either his doctor or a lot of people's doctors that I knew on the department who were taking steroids. For some reason, I never did it. Something told me not to do it. And of course, later, a lot of people had problems with their own body being unable to make testosterone, and it shut down. And it just caused many medical problems. People died from misuse of steroids. And so I'm so happy that I never took steroids one bit. And that was hard, because when you're working out with somebody who is taking them, the amount of weight difference between what they're pushing and what I was pushing was very humbling. I talked about it before, that it messes with your mind. Like, okay, we got to take off 3 plates on each side now so that I can do my set. I might as well just use the bar, for God's sakes. But it was a wealth of knowledge, and it was just amazing and thrilling, really, to be around all these bodybuilders that I would see in Gold's Gym. Like I said before, I would see Arnold every once in a while, and I saw Lou Ferrigno quite a bit. At the time, there was I would see the Menser brothers. If anybody remembers those guys back in the day, they were gigantic. There was a couple guys called the Barbarian Brothers. They were in a big movie called, I forgot the name of it, but they were well known. Carl Weathers was always coming into Gold's Gym. A lot of celebrities were coming into Gold's Gym, and people would show up, and major stars would come in, cameras flashing, and people just went about their business, just doing their workouts, and I did too. However, in my side eye, I was definitely awestruck at who I was seeing, and think, oh my God, there's a guy I watched and saw for so many years in the bodybuilding magazines and saw in competitions on television. Now, here he is, he's working out next to me. So it was pretty thrilling. And so that was, so I maintained kind of the, and of course I had to, eventually I came to the realization years before I even went to Los Angeles that I could never compete. I just couldn't do it, because the biggest part of bodybuilding is being symmetrical. That's how people win competitions. Okay, they have big biceps, but is it symmetrical with their shoulders, chest, back, and balanced legs, calves? Everything has to be in symmetry, relating to the size of each. And if one is really out of balance, they're going to be marked off symmetrically. And of course, symmetrically, I had the legs of a scarecrow no matter what I did. I mean, when Tim and I did leg day, and it was squat time and big leg press time, I mean, we got to the point where, hey, if you don't get in the bathroom and throw up after a set, then you're not working out hard enough. I mean, it was, and I did that a couple times, and so did he. And man, that was it, man. We would wrap our legs up, and we were doing heavy weight. Okay, I'm doing heavy weight. He was doing heavy weight. But man, those leg days were to the point of puking, and just trying to get size. I never could get much size. It was just so debilitating, depressing. I remember I had a buddy at work who never crossed the threshold of a gym in his life. His legs were like twice the size of mine. It looked like, oh, you must squat your whole life. No, it's just genetically the way it happens. So genetically, we're pre-programmed, and we're predisposed to be a certain size, and we can only gain so much, but we can do what we can, for sure. And that's what I've always tried to do when it comes to bodybuilding. And the knowledge you get from bodybuilding is just amazing, because people that I know who've gotten injuries and they've gone to rehab after, and I've gone to people with them while they've had rehab done, and I'm thinking, okay, all these exercises are exercises that I learned from bodybuilding magazines and exercise routines that I've done. They're doing the same thing for rehabbing an injury to either a joint or a muscle. But so that knowledge really is very beneficial to have. So I'm glad I got that knowledge, regardless of what the motive was. The motive was I just wanted to gain size, but it got me immersed and obsessed with the bodybuilding world on how to get bigger and how to gain strength and size, which is why, because you can get into powerlifting and then you're just dealing with how much weight you push for certain exercises. And that's all people are concerned with. You could be the smallest guy in the world, but you could be a great power lifter. But I was interested in, ego-wise, vanity weight-wise. I wanted strength and size, or really, I didn't care about the strength, but it goes together. You can only get so big without getting. You're going to have to get stronger. It's just it goes with the territory, and so that's what we're talking about today: bodybuilding. And that's how I got started in as a young man. It got me on the path to discipline, getting in the gym, gave me the knowledge for exercise and how to properly break down different groups of muscles, to work different groups of muscles at different times in different ways. And that knowledge I still carry with me and use today. And I share it with whoever I can, like I am with you today. Now, it's funny, in the academy, there was a guy I became friends with, Andre Brown. They called him Rosie because of Rosie Greer. He looked like Rosie Greer. And Andre Brown did a lot of powerlifting, and he took steroids. And he came from, I believe he came from Minnesota. No, I think it was Kansas. And he came out and he joined the Inglewood Police Department. Now, initially, he was so big. He was probably 280, 290 in the academy. And he was one of the slow runners with me, and we would barely make the time for qualifications when it came to running, but we would help each other. And he had been a cop in wherever it was he was from for quite a few years, in a city that had a lot of action in it. So he knew what he was doing, and he was really an expert in policing. But the drill instructors kind of went after him for a couple of reasons. Number one, he was in a participating agency. He wasn't with the sheriff's department, so they kind of went after him. He was a big guy, he knew a lot. So they wanted to, beat him down a little bit, say, hey, you don't know so much, you're with the big boys now. So they would hit him quite heavy. And they were really, I think at one point, trying to get him out of the academy because of his size and weight. He just couldn't do a lot of the runs and the exercises that he needed to graduate, but he did do it. He got to it, man. He sweated. And this guy was awesome, but he ended up graduating and going to Inglewood PD. And then I started working out for a guy who was called Vince's Gym in Long Beach. And so he was a black guy who competed in natural bodybuilding contests, the nicest guy. And he had a nice little gym in North Long Beach or Long Beach. And then when I went to Linwood, adjacent to Compton, so now I'm working South Central. I'm a deputy sheriff there. And, it's a very tense between all the gangs, the police. There's a lot of shootings or with each other. And so Vince, he moved his gym to Compton. And so I went with Andre once, and he says, I'm going to Vince's. I go, I know Vince. I used to work out. I'll go back to his gym. So here's Andre and I working out at Vince's gym now in Compton, in the middle of Compton, and I'm the only white guy in there. And I worked out there quite a few times, and I think maybe I might have saw two other white guys in a year of working out there, but it probably wasn't the smartest thing for me to be doing. But hey, I liked Vince. He had a great gym. I was loyal to him, and so most of the time I was with Andre anyways, who was now he was probably over 300 after he graduated from the academy, and he ended up doing private security, doing a lot of commercials. He took a lot of steroids, and he died pretty young of heart disease. So I think when he died, he probably was 45, maybe 50. But boy, he died of a heart attack, but he had a big heart. And Andre was well loved, not only in the police agency of Inglewood, he was well loved in the entertainment industry. But it was just funny that Andre and I would be working out at Vince's gym in the middle of Compton. Not the smartest thing to do, but I survived it. Nothing happened. Nobody killed me because I'm still here with you. And so that's our episode today about bodybuilding. And if you liked it and you think somebody might be interested, share it. And listen, if you haven't already and you're listening and or watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and please leave a comment. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, please subscribe to the podcast, especially if you're on iTunes. Leave a rating. We need the reviews. The reviews tell the computer, hey, people are interacting with the show, and the show gets shown to more people who are interested in my subject, which is motivation, inspiration, personal growth. Thanks for checking in, everybody. Cliff Yates, and I'll see you on the next episode.